Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to touch on a few tips and tricks for working with any type of zipper, and then we'll focus on sewing a closed end zipper into a garment. In front of us right here there are a few supplies. I have some sewing and craft tape right here that is 1/8 of an inch wide, so we're going to use this in place of pins when we set the zippers into the seams. And then I also have this washi tape, which is just 1/2 inch wide, and we're going to use this as a seam allowance guide when we're sewing in our zippers. We also have some fusible interfacing, and this is great for just reinforcing the fabric when you're about to sew in your zipper. Then over here we have a few closed end zippers. So we have the nylon coil teeth, and then we also have a metal teeth zipper. So I'm going to demonstrate putting these in on a seam where they're underneath the fabric, and then on this one I'm going to show you how to do an exposed zipper on your garment. So let's jump on in and we'll go through the process and tips used with sewing these types of zippers. For this first example, I'm going to show you a basic straight center back seam and a closed end zipper that we've shortened to the length that we want. And we've just done fusible interfacing around the base of that zipper, pressed down, and that is secure at the bottom. Now for the beginning steps, we've gone ahead and applied the fusible interfacing to both sides of that opening, and then I've basted down to the point at which my zipper will end, and then I've done a regular stitched seam allowance for the remainder of that seam. Now the zipper itself is going to sit about right here, so this end point, if you have a stop or the fusible interfacing, will hit right where we've backstitched to secure this baseline of that seam, because this basting stitching is going to be removed once we sew the zipper in. And you can see here that this zipper actually extends about 1 inch or 2 beyond the length of the opening. And this is so that we can sew this zipper in without any need to slide that zipper pull out of the way up at the top. Now what we're going to do to install this zipper, we're just going to zip this zipper all the way up to the top. We know that it's longer than the opening that we need. Now I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to go over and I'm going to press this seam open. So this is the top edge, and you can see right here this is that interfacing portion. Now I have the zipper ready to install. I'm applying this 1/8 inch quilter's tape. It's double-sided. I'm putting it along this outside edge of the zipper so that it will hold the zipper down without pins, but I can stitch inside that. You don't want to stitch through this tape. That will definitely gum up your needle. So I'm just going to continue applying that down the edge, and it's easy to just tear off, and then we can just peel that off, and that will leave me with a sticky residue so that I can position my zipper where I want it. And I want to note where I have my back stitching, and I'm going to want to put that base of the zipper below. I'm lining up my zipper coils with this center seam line all the way up to the top, and then I'm just going to go ahead and finger press that down where I have that tape, and that will hold that zipper in place. So I'll just go ahead and remove that backing on both sides, and I'll press down this other side. So I have the zipper secured, and now I'm just going to flip this over, and I'm going to take this over to my machine to stitch down around this opening. And note again that my zipper is pulled way up above this top line. Now here's just a quick look too at the traditional way to insert a closed end zipper, where the stops are at the top, and you'll notice here that we have the pull right up at the top. So that is going to be in the way, and we will have to adjust our stitching and position our zipper foot so that we can sew around this, which will require us to unzip it and re-zip it. So this method over here is simpler, especially for the projects that you're working on where the area is quite small. So we'll go through the installation instructions for this method. Now here's a quick tip for sewing an even seam allowance down both sides of this zipper opening. We're going to take the washi tape that I showed you at the beginning. This is a 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to use this right over this opening from the top down to the base of the opening of the zipper, which I've marked with this pin. So I've just positioned that right over evenly with that seam line right down the center. And now I'm going to use this as my seam allowance guide, and I'm going to stitch right around the edges of this tape. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to remove this tape off the garment. Now we're at the machine. We're just going to swap out our presser foot and install our zipper foot. Then we're just going to position the needle, and then I'm going to bring over my garment. Now I'm just going to remove this pin, and I'm going to start at the base, and I'm going to stitch, pivot this corner, and then stitch straight up to the top. So you can see here, we're just stitching right along this tape, and the tape that is holding this zipper down is on the outside edge of my stitching line. So I'm not stitching through that quilter's tape. So I've just gone ahead and back stitched right at the top, and then I've pulled that out, and this zipper pull is still up above my opening. Now I'm just going to go back to the base of the zipper, and I'm going to stitch along this other side of my taped line. Now I've gone ahead and I backstitched again at this side. So now we can just remove this tape, and you can see this seam line is right at the center. So I'm just going to take the seam ripper and remove this basting stitching that's in this center seam. And this will come out really easily. And then you'll see your zipper teeth right inside there. So we can do that down to the base. Now that I have this seam open, I can unzip my zipper. So then my zipper pull is sitting inside my opening, and now right here I'm just going to go in and I'm going to use a zigzag set at 0 and just create a new zipper stop right at the top of the tape inside here. And then as you're putting this garment together, if it was a skirt or a pair of pants, you'd have a waistband that's sewed across and attached over this seam anyway. So your zipper would stop at that point. So you can add that zipper stop just to keep this on until you've sewn that part, or you can do it carefully with a thread that's the same color if it's going to show, and you put it a little bit down inside. Then it would not be noticeable, and like in this case we do it in a blue thread. For this example I'm going to do it in the pink. So to do that I'm going to need to switch my presser foot back to my regular standard presser foot. Then I'm just going to switch my stitch to a zigzag, and I'm going to push this down all the way to a 0 stitch line. And that will create basically a satin stitch to create that zipper stop. Then I'm just going to position the end of my zipper right under my needle. So this will be centered and it's going to zigzag right over the coils, but I don't want to catch my little flap right here, the lapped edge that's covering that. I want to make sure that I have that out of the way. Then I'm just going to repeat that for the other side. Then I can go ahead and just zip this up, and those new stops will keep the pull from sliding off the top. And then we can just come in and trim off the remaining zipper tape up at the top. And then you would just finish the garment how it needs to be finished, whether it has a lining or a waistband or however that top line edge is finished. But now you have a center closed-end zipper installed in your garment. To sew a closed-end exposed zipper in your garment, you're going to follow similar steps, except that you need to create a little bit difference in the seam allowance from where the zipper goes in to the seam allowance below the base of the zipper, so that you leave part of the zipper tape exposed. So the zipper is still going to be sewn in on the underside of the fabric, not just applied on top. But I'm going to show you how to make that adjustment in the seam allowance for that effect. So for this example, we just need to mark along our back opening at the top. We're going to mark down a 1/2 inch right on our interfacing. So you can see that I'm marking a 1/2 inch line, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. And I'm going to determine how long I want that to be, which I've already done with the interfacing in this example. So I'm going to have a line that goes down and straight across at the base. Now this line right here is going to become my fold line. So I'm just going to baste along this just to create a stitch line to use as a guide for the folding after the next step. So here you can see we've gone ahead and basted along those marked lines for where the zipper itself is going to go in. But beneath that, at the base, the basting has come around and in towards this raw edge at center back. But below this, I've sewn a 1/4 inch seam allowance with regular stitching all the way down. So the bottom half of this is already sewn together, but the top is not. So now we're just going to cut into this corner, and I'm about a 1/2 inch up from that baseline basting, and I'm just at an angle going to cut into this little corner. So you want to cut as close as you can, but just don't cut through your stitching. So now that we have this clipped, you're going to press these back along this basting stitch line, and you can remove that basting stitching. Then on the wrong side, you're going to go ahead and press this bottom of the seam line open, and these are the upper areas which are going to go around your zipper. So this is the right side of the fabric. And you can see if I just place this zipper underneath, the effect is going to be an exposed zipper along the middle. So we're going to use the same technique as I already illustrated, so that we can sew this with the zipper pull up high, and then we'll move it down after we sew around these edges. But first we need to secure the base of the zipper. So to do that, we're going to, with right sides together, just set our zipper lined up so that these teeth are lined up with this stitching line. At the base, you want to be able to flip this right side out so that you see the base of the zipper. So we're just going to secure this down, and we can use this double-sided quilter's tape, or you can use pins, and we're going to stitch straight across this bottom edge. Then once you have that stitched at the base, you're just going to flip your zipper over, and that is going to fold it to the inside, and then you're just going to line up the pressed under edges so that you have that evenly spaced, and you can work a little bit if your corners are not even, just to make sure that you have this pressed down. And then at this point you have two options to finish this. You can secure this with pins or that double stick tape and just simply top stitch this down. That would provide one version or variation of an exposed zipper. And the alternate idea is to flip this to the inside and then stitch right along your creased line on the inside so that that stitching is hidden and you have no stitching visible from this top side edge. Then once you've gone ahead and done either one of those methods, you can come up here to the top, pull your zipper down, apply your zigzag stitch to create the new zipper top right up here, and then finish that garment the way the pattern is instructed, either with a lining, a waistband, some sort of binding across the top. And then you have a finished exposed zipper. So there you have two versions of a closed end zipper sewn into your garment. I hope these tips were helpful, and this will give you a variety of options and choices to use as you're finishing some of your projects.